it's time to work on a couple more Mother's Day cards. I actually wound up using the purple as a backer under the Mother's Day card I made yesterday. Just as a note, if you do use heavier cardstock, these corner things are kind of fragile, so if you're using anything heavy, I'd recommend just, gluing it to the back. And you can always, like, put glue in areas like here where there isn't card, so you can always use that to kind of tack it down too, because these will kind of fall out. But anyway, I like how that came out. The You Got This cards are all dry, and they look pretty good too. You can kind of see, I don't know if it reads on camera, but you can kind of see where glue didn't get adhered to anything. And if that bugs you, look for a matte adhesive like a Yes Paste or something like that. So I have a Mom Ward die, and it comes with a drop shadow. So basically, I'm going to punch out the drop shadow in white and then use lunar paste to basically make metallic cardstock in pink and gold for that. And then I'm going to do some ink blending for the rest of it. Um, I think I'm going to use this Garden Vibes Only transfer on one of them. I haven't decided what I'm going to do on the other one. I don't know. I may just do it as like sort of a tie-dye kind of ink blendy thing, and then probably use the pink Mom on that one. So I may just have Mom by itself. So the first thing I need to do to get started on this whole thing is to basically make metallic cardstock. So I'm going to grab some Yes Paste and just basically blend it down the card a little bit. This doesn't really have to be, like, this isn't really a perfection thing. And you can always go back and do multiple layers. But basically, we want this to be pretty much flat, and I sort of got the sense of, like, how big the die was earlier. So it's sort of most of this whole area. I am using one of the Bristol scraps from yesterday for this. Um, yeah, so I'm doing that. And what you don't really get when you use the chalk paste and like stipple this is you don't really get the level of shiny that, sometimes you can get when you just use it flat. So that is good. And then I can put the rest back in the jar. Kind of like chalk paste, the lunar paste, like a little bit goes a really long way. And if you're using really thin layers, it's going to dry pretty fast. If you use like a palette knife or something like that, those will take a little bit more doing. But I'm just going to grab a piece of towel and just wipe off any excess. This isn't going to hurt anything, even if we go right into chalk paste, because once it's dry, it's pretty much out of the way. And you can see already how gold that's looking. We can always hit this with a hair dryer too. And now we're going to go for a pretty pink pink. This is also lunar paste, and again, you need a lot less than you think you do. So this may actually be too much, but we'll see. You can always put it back in the jar if you need to. And we really would prefer to not have lumps and to pretty much get this good. You can also blend with your finger, which creates sort of a nice, sort of a more matte effect on this. Well, I mean, it's still shiny, but it sort of blends out any kind of like strangeness you might have going on. And this is the Chalk Couture, the angle tool, or the utility tool, I guess. The other one with the poker on the end is the detail tool. Anyway, that's pretty much all we have to do with the lunar paste. And even if you, like, miss a little area or don't get this die lined up perfectly, it'll be fine. So I will just grab a hair dryer and just dry this off. because then we can... I probably will do the ink blending next, just because letting this cool would be a good idea as well. Because, like, when you dry it with a heat tool, sometimes it can cause the paper to warp or do other weird things that, like, once it sort of cools off, we'll be fine. And just hitting it on each side. You can see the paper is, like, buckling a little bit, but nothing too crazy. That's just as the like the water part of the paste is getting absorbed. So I'm going to throw this over here for a second just to cool. And I'm gonna cut some more Bristol paper into some card fronts for the ink blending. And I'll talk to you a little bit about the colors. So one of these cards is for a friend of mine who really wanted to do sort of a spring color blend. So that one's going to be pink and yellow and sort of an orange color and purple. So sort of very spring flowery colors. And I'm just cutting this into 5 1/4 by 4, which is sort of my standard panel size that I usually work on. There's one. And you've got a square, so I mean, really, like, you could actually use a square as an element. I may do that. Like, I think that would be pretty neat with the mom in the center. So I think I'll actually do that. That wasn't quite my intention when I was starting, but sometimes we change our minds. And the other thing you could do is, like, if you have a leftover saturated color, you can always use ink on top of this too. Although on purple, I don't think you'd see very much. I have a couple of purple scraps left too, if say, if I want to just use that in some way in combination with the other stuff. I just can't seem to pick this up. Here we go. So, like, this is a little bit longer, but, like, you could almost put this in the middle or something. You know, you could do that and then do, like, mom on top of it. Anyway, I don't know if I'll use that, but there's always room for using up your scraps. So let's get our colors laid out here quick. I'm going with Catherine Pooler, the more muted side of her line. So we've got sort of like a sort of harvesty, orangey kind of color. It's not quite it's not quite a yellow and not quite an orange. It's almost like a goldenrod. And then some pink and some purple. So I definitely need a purple blending tool. And I have a brown. I have a pink, which I actually haven't used, which is surprising. And I probably need something for yellow and orange. Well, I have yellow and orange. So I have a lot of these blending brushes that I haven't used much. I love that you can put colors on the handle so you can figure them out. I think I'll start out with yellow just because it's probably going to be the least saturated of the colors. And whether you're using a mini ink pad or not, this is interesting. It's actually looking more green than I was intending, but let's see how... It doesn't look that way on the actual cardstock, but I'm just going to kind of come in here, and I don't actually have like a major plan here because we're going to be using the transfer on top of this, so this is mostly just background at this point. So there's some yellow down. I enjoy how that looks. And then we'll grab some of this Catch and Raise. When these brushes are new, like really loading them up is a good idea. So, I don't know, we'll just sort of maybe do in here. Do a little bit of that. Leave. I'm probably not going to use a huge ton of purple just because I think some of these other colors would get lost in purple. Yeah, there we go. And just sort of blend that in. And this gives you a nicely blended look. And I mean, like, working on Bristol paper helps a bit too. So now I want to grab the pink. And this is a little bit of a, I don't know what, it's definitely a muted pink. It's interesting because it looks so red on the brush. But in any event, we'll just, it's definitely pink. Blend in some pink there, and blend in some here as well. And just sort of blend the colors together a little bit. A little bit of this Serenade, which is a more muted purple. There's, I forget what the name of the purple is in this line that's like not muted at all, but this one is more of like an Eastery purple. I might go in a little bit here too. It sort of grays it out, but I don't know. I kind of like how this looks. Oop. Yeah, that's not the lid. Grabbing a little more to make this a little more vibrant, because this kind of grayed out a little bit with the yellow. And now this can happen to you where you just get like fingerprints on it, and you can actually just blend that out. And this is kind of blending it a little more muted than I wanted, but I mean, I think it kind of looks good. It's definitely the colors we want. And these marks we can definitely position our mom on top of. And then we could drop shadow it and then do it in the gold. These are dried and cooled off now, so we can die cut these in a moment. But while we're at it, let's finish up with our ink blending first. And for the square, I'm just going to use two of my favorite colors, these, basically a green and a blue. It's Mardi Gras and Fiesta. They are probably my two favorite inks. Just because they're such happy colors. And this is almost bordering on a little bit turquoisey. Yeah. But I think once we get some blue in here, it'll be more. Yeah, and then we can just sort of work it in the middle there. I definitely want to get this blue more vibrant, because the Fiesta is a very vibrant color, and you know, sort of using a little bit of this to sort of break this up and make this a little bit of the same tone. So I like how this is going. I think that'll look great with the pink. And the nice thing about ink blending is it's super fast to get done. So I mean, it's a really nice way to basically make a background that you can use all over the place. I don't love how the yellow and the purple came out here. It looks a little, I don't know. It's either muted or dirty, depending on how you like to think about it. But I think once it's covered up, it'll look fine. And since we're going to basically use the Garden Vibes only on this one as like a focal point, it'll be fine. And like the saturation of color on both of these is really impressive, considering I'm working on a coated paper. Like I'm not even like building up layers. That's just sort of like the mass tone as it comes out. So next, it's time for some die cutting with our mom die. We do the gold first. And sort of being super crazy about the alignment, but because of the way the paper is slightly warped, this top die is moving around a bit, which is why I'm doing things that look like I'm slightly nuts, but it'll be fine. Here we go with pass 1. And it's definitely cut all the way through. So here's our mom drop shadow. Oh, maybe that's... No, that's the drop shadow. Oh, it's... This can sometimes happen, and this is another good use of a pokey tool to sort of get this out. As you can see, it's like stuck to the die. So that oh, it's just the O that was stuck to the die. And this is the letters it's stuck in as well. So you can try and bend this, but really, whoop, wrong tool. Here we go. Perfect. Mom number 1. And a little O if we so choose to use it. Now we'll do our mom number 2. Get our Spellbinders machine out of the way. So we've got one that looks like this, and second one, and again it sort of remained stuck here. So all I'm doing is like using the pokey tool to sort of try and dislodge it a little bit. Just bend it a little to see if we can't get it loose. This is being quite sticky. Here we go. Alrighty. There we are. And the reason this was sticky is this lunar paste does have a little bit of stick to it, but because of the way... Actually, this you could punch either way, but generally text, you have to pay attention to what direction the die is going. And we've got an extra little pink O if we need it. And save the rest of this for another project on another day. So, see, I think this will be fine. This will basically cover over some of that area, and it'll stand out a bit. The other option is, if we don't want to use the drop shadow, we can just use the word directly, but which this is nice too. I guess you can't see too well. This is nice. It depends if you want more of a tone-on-tone look, or if you, with the drop shadow, it's more offset, basically. You know, with the mom drop shadow, it looks like that, so. Actually, I'm wrong. This isn't a drop shadow. This is just a, I guess it is. It's a, you could also just use it as a whole word because it's all cut out, but yeah, it is a drop shadow. I don't know. Some of these you can use in multiple ways, but I think it looks better with the drop shadow in both cases. The pink, it probably matters less because you could just do this, and if we grab our little, oh, I don't know where that went. Our little scrap piece is here. We could also do it that way. Oh, I like that. So I may save one of these, do the purple. I think the purple on here would, I think that's going to look very, very nice. So I'll use this on the purple, and I'll use one of these. Now, kind of like a lot of things, like you don't need glue everywhere, but you definitely want to make sure the word is stuck down. So bring a little dollop there. See where my tweezers have gone. Here we go. This one lining up kind of matters because of, you know, what it is, because it's words. And then I'll just set that over here to dry for a moment. Get some of the glue off my hands. This one I'm going to just put glue on the back of this. I mentioned this yesterday. This is a great job for spray adhesive, which I rarely use, but you can basically flip the word over, use some spray adhesive on it, and just directly place it wherever you want. And because this is like yesterday, this is going to leave a little adhesive, which I think is fine, but. And here we could do a couple things with this. We could just leave this as it is. Actually, this looks like it's almost identically sized, so I think I'll just leave it the way it is. So I think I'll just throw a line of adhesive down. Whoop, there we go. Let's do it. Obviously, you could use tape runner for this too, or adhesive dots, or you could use like foam to make it sort of pop off the paper a little bit, and just going to sort of eyeball this, and then sort of once it's down, and if we need to trim it, we can always trim it on a paper trimmer or elsewhere, and if we want to just trim off this edge. But I think it pretty much is fine. So I think I will leave this as is, and that panel can just dry and be out of the way. This mom is still a little sticky, but basically it's going to go here. So what I want to do is get a sense of, I think, yeah. So essentially, if you treat the rest of this as a square, the mom will go up top. So we can just let the mom continue to dry. And we have an extra mom. So you could just use this background dye if you want to, like a chunkier mom. Well, a chunkier word mom. I don't know. I do not want to accuse anybody's mother of being overly chunky on Mother's Day. But anyway, this one I haven't used before, so I'm definitely going to fuzz it a few times on a towel to make sure it's not going to lift up stuff. I haven't used this with ink, so I'm curious if any of the ink will lift up. Yeah, we'll use the word curious. Hopefully it won't, but if it does, we have something that has a distressed look now, I guess. So I wasn't sure which of these paste colors I like. I think white will keep this less busy, although I think this pink actually works really well because it's very close to this pink. So it's kind of, I don't know. I think it would have enough contrast, but I think I'll just use white because I feel like that's almost, I feel like the white would be cleaner in this particular instance. And my white has some gunk on the sides. It's a good reason to clean out your paste, which I didn't do very well here, but this is getting a little stringy. It's not quite as nice as it was originally, but anyway, you can use some distilled water and loosen this up, like if this is a little sticky for you. It's getting a little sticky for me, but we'll see. Here I'm definitely trying to hit all of the words. And I'm actually a little light on paste. So we will use a little more here. This is pretty much through, so I am scraping this off, and I'm actually going to use a towel on this quick. Not going to clean it off, obviously, but just so that when I am removing unneeded paste here, it's not going to be too crazy. I think the reason this dried out is the lid wasn't on fully tight, just as an FYI. That area looks like it may or may not have been hit. I try and be a little more careful on words just because, like, if parts of the words are gone, you kind of notice it. Like, if it's a picture, I don't really think that anyone would mind too much. Get a little any excess off. And this is my actual favorite use of this pokey tool, is to lift up transfers when they're in sort of hard to find places. And I'm going to lay this down because I saw that this top, Garden Vibes Only, didn't really get fully done. So what I'm going to do is grab a little bit more paste and go over this again. Sometimes that will happen, and you can also decide, like, if you want to go for more of a, I don't know, a farmhouseier look where you just sort of leave parts of things not fully done. But I don't know. I think with the sentiment, you kind of want it to be mostly done. So let's pick up this side again. Just put this down because the N here is just being difficult. See if we can't get that. If not, the other option is to just wet this a little bit to see if we can't get things to come through. This feels better. Yeah, it is just... The paste, I think, was a little too... Yeah, and you see it's kind of lifting this up off the ink. I think it's just not sticking as well because of the ink on here, so good to know. And I don't love how this looks. You see, like, the chalk has come through the screen, but it hasn't really worked out too well on this particular surface. Because you basically want the chalk to stick, and that's what makes this work. So we have a couple options here. I'm going to go rinse this in my tool quick, but could put a panel over here and then chalk on the panel with our other color. I think that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to rinse off this transfer first to get anything outside of it. But then I think we can just go and cut a small white panel and go from there. I think what happened is the paste was just a little bit too thick and it jammed the screen and then it wouldn't go all the way through. So I think that's basically what was up here. Just let this dry a little bit and we will make another attempt. And like if this was an image, I'd probably leave it alone. We can actually use this purple, I think. Get this out of the way. And what do we need? Probably like get a sense of how big this is. Well, it's just 3x3 panel is probably what we want here. We might be able to just use the chalk as glue. Let's find out if that is the case. Doesn't seem like it. Yeah, this is already dried. So I think the issue was that this white is just a little... actually, this would be a better use. I'll just use tape runner on this quick, because then I can get it down more quickly. And we can attempt a rechalking. I definitely need to do some rehab on that white, I think. And there we go. Now the sticky is re-stickied here already. So I'm just going to sort of go for center. Let's try the white again, because I think you can see here that it's a little dried out, but I think that because I'm just going to grab some from the center where it's less dried out. I think because we used a bunch of water on this, it should be fine. So let us try that. And if this doesn't work twice, then we will know for the future. But I definitely want to make sure I'm getting the most liquidy of the chalk paste. And that's pretty liquidy. Because some of the stuff on the edges was much more dry, like dry feeling. Yeah, this looks like it's going through. And that's sort of, when you hear people talking about like not wanting the paste to dry, that's one of the issues where it'll just sort of stick like this. Like you can see here that this is all dried chalk paste. Anywho. Yeah, this looks like worked much better. Oop, got a little bit of... Ha ha ha. Perfect. I messed up the O a little bit, but it's fine. You can still read it. Anyway. Now, this is together, and should do a video on rehydrating that. Although I do need to pick up some distilled water. And to quote one of my favorite card crafters, if you have a card and it's not working out, just keep adding stuff to it until it does. Because, like, the more you layer a card, generally the better it's going to look. Within reason. Whoops. Anyway. Just going to clean up my mat here. Whoops. And you can just use water on this. I use a little all-purpose cleaner. But it has basically gotten all that dried off chalk off my mat, and while we're here, we can clean the rest of this so it's all shiny together. I have a tendency to get glue on my mats, which is why I use an all-purpose cleaner, even though most of the stuff I use cleans up perfectly well with water. And our mom looks like it should be dry enough to attach. There we are. Should be good. I'm just tapping it a little to make sure it is stable and secure. And the cards are pretty much done. I'm going to let these dry, and the only thing left to do really is to mount them on a base, and we should be good. I went and grabbed some complementary colored card bases and hit both of these with the hair dryer to get them to be mostly dry at this point. The glue's still a little sticky, but just going to sort of do our usual thing and get some glue down on the cards with some tape runner. And because I almost did this wrong, it's good to validate how your card opens, because once these things are down with tape runner, like, they're just not going to move around. So yes, always validate your card setup. And this guy's totally done with our requested colors. And you can see how, like, these ink blends really kind of aren't necessarily their own. Well, I mean, they are their own element, but I mean, sometimes they're just like really, they turn out to be kind of subtle once everything is down. Now this one is interesting. So you could mat this in the middle, which is what I'm probably going to do, because I like it showing through. But the other option is you could push it down, and then, you know, obviously when you're done, you could just cut the card to size, and then you'd have sort of a fairly unique form factor of card, which can also be a fun thing to do at times. Again, it's your stuff, so do whatever makes you happy. Also, I didn't even this up because I kind of liked how it looked, you know, so it looks a little bit PC and a little bit, like, slightly oversized. So, I don't know. This one's also done. So, we are good. And you can see a couple different takes on just your basic mom card.